Okay. We're looking at a problem where they've given us a formula for the volume of a cone. That's often the way it is, the volume of something, an area of something. And in this case, the volume of the cone is 1/3 times pi times r squared times h, where r is the radius and h is the height. So our first question here is more of a basic achieved level one, where they ask us to find the volume in terms of pi when r is equal to 3 and h is equal to 5. Okay, what does this mean? They want us to find the volume, so v equals something, when r is equal to 3 and h is equal to 5. So we're actually going to just replace the r with a 3 and replace the h with a 5. And remember, there's little tiny invisible time signs between all those letters there. So if we just rewrite this out, 3 pi r squared h, what I'm really doing is saying, well, replace the r with a 3, a little time sign, and I'm going to replace the h with a times 5 because it's 5. Okay. Now 3 times 3, or 3 squared, is going to be 9, so I'm going to have 1/3 pi times 9 times 5. And 9 times 5 is actually 45. So 1/3 pi times 45 is equal to v. And now I need to think about dividing to simplify this fraction. So what can I divide? What happens when I divide 45 by 3? Well, there's in fact 3 15s in there. So v is equal to pi 15. And by convention, we write the answer always with the number in front of the pi. So v is equal to 15 pi. And that's it. You're done. But looking at this exact same problem again for a second, go back to what I had. 1/3 pi 3 squared times 5. Right here at this step, or even in the next step, instead of multiplying it out to get 45, I could think about simplifying it here. Little shortcut for you. X squared over x is simplifies to x. So 3 squared over 3 will also simplify to just 3 times 5. The 3 on bottom cancels one of the 3's on top. So now we've got, sorry, not a fraction. We have pi times 15. And again, writing it out with the number in front. 15 pi. And that's what they mean by leave it in terms of pi. And this would be centimeters cubed because it's a volume. So we don't have to put in the 3.14, mostly because we don't have a calculator and that would be a pain to calculate. So we just leave it as 15 pi as the most precise answer. Now the next part of this question, they've asked us to write the formula for the radius r in terms of these other things. So this is where they want us to rearrange to actually figure out how to write the formula as r equals something. So I'm going to rewrite it here. V is equal to 1/3 pi r squared h. Scroll down so we can take a look at it. Remember, we have invisible time signs in here. That's 1/3 times pi times r squared times h. So the opposite of timesing, to undo this, would be to divide. So if I have v, and I want to actually get rid of everything but the r, so that's all of this stuff, all of that is being times by the r in some way, so we can actually divide all of that away. 1/3 pi and h, and you're left with the r squared. And now that we've got the r squared, the last step that we need to think about is undoing the square, which is by doing a square root. So if we take a square root of both sides, those will cancel, and you're left with the square root of v over 1/3 pi h equals r. And technically, if we take an even root, we should say plus or minus r, but because r is a radius, a real thing, we will just leave it as a positive solution here. It would not make sense to have a negative solution. Alternately, you could also think about solving it like this. 1/3 pi r squared h. You could think of that 1/3 as the 3 on bottom, so you could times it to the top. 3v divided by pi h is equal to r squared. Square root of 3v over pi h will be equal to r. Both of these expressions are exactly the same, and they'll both be considered correct. So take a look at it and just think again in simple terms. Do I need to times or divide to move those terms to the other side? And it's alright to leave what you're looking for on the right hand side of the equation.